Hi guys, it's Catherine again, aka Punch Like back on Twitch, and of course I'm here to share my coaching tidbit with you and on behalf of the Matrix Guard. And today it's all about empathy versus sympathy, and specifically whether or not your response to someone else's pain builds or breaks down trust. A lot of what I'm about to share with you comes out of Brené Brown's work, and specifically her book Dare to Lead. And okay, let's just dive right into it. So when someone comes to us with their pain, they want empathy, but we usually give them sympathy. And this is because sympathy is a safe and easy choice, but there's a problem with sympathy. It hurts trust, while empathy, on the other hand, builds trust, but requires us to get vulnerable, so it's harder to do. And it's a skill that most of us haven't been taught before. So sympathy is feeling for somebody. It comes mostly from our head and doesn't really get our hearts involved. And when we're feeling pity, it often results in us feeling pity for someone when we're sympathetic. And it's like we can see they're in pain, but we're not really moved to get involved. Whereas empathy is better for relationships because it builds on and reinforces connection. It's what happens to sympathy when we connect our head to our heart. And it comes from the German word einfühling, which means feeling into. Brené Brown has an amazing short video on empathy. I highly recommend. You can just do a little search for Brené Brown video on empathy. It's a animated video. It's really, really lovely. And there's a quote that I want to share with you. She says, "Rarely can a response make things better. What makes things better is connection." So empathy builds connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Okay. The way sympathy disconnects is basically comes in three buckets. One is we tend to run away from the situation, or we negate the situation, or we judge the situation. So running behaviors looks like this: changing the conversation, doing most of the talking, getting distracted, actually leaving, and making the conversation all about you. So telling your story. Oh, well, I'm so sorry you're getting divorced. Let me tell you about my last breakup, right? That's sympathy, not empathy. Getting so upset that they end up feeling like they need to take care of your emotions. That is also a form of running. Negating looks like reassuring them, finding the silver lining in the situation, trying to fix the situation, handing them a tissue when they cry. And that might seem a little counterintuitive, but the idea behind a tissue is, oh, you're messy, you should clean it up. Okay. And of course, judging the situation is also the third way that we tend to react sympathetically instead of empathetically. Whereas empathy drives connection with three buckets of actions. Yeah, three counter buckets of actions. So the first is staying instead of running. That looks like listening, risking silence, accepting that you don't need to know the answer. It sounds messy, right? And vulnerable. It is. The second bucket is acknowledging and validating their emotional experience. So you can say things like, wow, I don't even know what to say, but I'm so glad you told me. I'm here. Or that sucks. I hate that you have to go through this. I'm here. Do you want to talk about it? Thanks for sharing and trusting me. If you want to really acknowledge, like a kind of a classic tool for acknowledging, if you feel like something more is helpful to be said, you could say, it sounds like you feel X about Y, and that makes total sense because of Z, right? So, wow, it sounds like you're feeling really angry and sad right now because your dog was just diagnosed with cancer, and that makes total sense because this isn't something you were expecting. You're surprised, and and I know how much you love your dog and how really your doggy is your baby, that kind of a thing. Okay, so then the third bucket, instead of judging, you're accepting of the situation and the emotions and the person. There's another quote from Brené Brown that I really want to share. She says, "Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice. Because if I were to choose to connect with you through empathy, I would have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. In the face of a difficult conversation, when we see that someone's hurt or in pain, it's our instinct as human beings to try to make things better. We want to fix. We want to give advice. But empathy isn't about fixing. It's the brave choice to be with someone in their darkness, not to run to turn on the light so we feel better. Ooh. Oh, right? So for Brené Brown, there are 5 empathy skills. 1 is perspective taking. This is where we walk in someone else's shoes and we let go of the need to be right and we get curious. 2 is being non-judgmental. This is where judgment disconnects people and erodes trust. So we tend to be non-judgmental around things that we ourselves experience shame for, especially when the person is doing worse than us in that area. So we don't feel judgment in areas where we feel a strong sense of self-worth. So cultivating that in yourself will help you judge less. So 3, we want to understand another person's feelings. And this is really about getting fluent in the language of feelings, or at the very least, being conversational and somewhat comfortable in the worlds of emotions. One way to do this, if it's something you really struggle with, is you can set an alarm on your phone to go off at a regular interval every day. I did this for 2 weeks for every hour, and when it went off, I would just check in with myself and attempt to label the emotion I was currently feeling. That helped. Start to give me an emotional vernacular to use that had more specificity than what I had before. So fourth is communicating your understanding of that person's feelings. And this, I think, is where the vulnerability really comes into play. She says that this can feel like the biggest risk because we can get it wrong. And if or when we do, and we are off base, we need the courage to circle back to it. And in fact, as long as we show up, she says, with our whole hearts and pay attention and stay curious, we always can course correct. And that, in fact, I think that messy cycle of attempting to say, oh, it sounds like you feel this because of why, and they're like, oh, no, that's not it at all, and you readjust. I think that messiness connects people more than anything else because they see that you care and that you're present and you're listening and you're trying and you're not giving up. You're not running. You're not trying to fix. The final skill is being mindful or having mindfulness. And this is important because it helps you have awareness of the situation and also helps you to not minimize or exaggerate their emotions. There are some other quotes from Brené Brown, 2 more that I want to share. She says, engage, stay curious, stay connected, let go of the fear of saying the wrong thing, the need to fix it, sorry, I have a hiccup, and the desire to offer the perfect response that cures everything. That's not going to happen. You don't have to do it perfectly, just do it. I adore Brené Brown so much. If you have not watched her TED Talks or read her books, I cannot recommend her highly enough. She is a shame and vulnerability researcher par excellence. The second quote is, to be able to stand in discomfort with people who are processing shame or hurt or disappointment or hardship, and to be able to say to them, I see you, and I can hold space for this, is the epitome of courage. So the good news is that we are all capable of empathy, and we're capable of getting skillful at it. This is not something that is fixed, like a fixed trait in most of us, because barring a handicap, we have something really wonderful in our brains called mirror neurons that allow us to feel exactly what someone else is feeling. Woohoo! If you're, so I guess just a couple real quick things to wrap this tidbit up. I think that there maybe is a dark side to empathy where it's possible to have too much. And keeping in mind that I am not a therapist, I am a life coach, this is just my thoughts on the subject. I think it might be possible to take empathy too far. Like if you identify with someone else's suffering to the point where you lose a sense of your emotions and your own needs, the answer is, yeah, you probably can take it too far. Empathy is about connection. And this scenario is about you disconnecting yourself by becoming one with the other person. So healthy boundaries are essential for connection. Your needs still matter, and empathy doesn't require you to sacrifice your needs. So I hope that was helpful. You can use the celebration power-up from a previous episode to choose empathy with your loved ones when there's something that they're celebrating and feeling really good about. So there's a way to be empathetic in the hard times and a way to be empathetic in the good times to build that connection. And okay, last little thing, right? So empathy is about feeling with somebody. It drives connection. Sympathy is about feeling for somebody. It drives disconnection. It's where you run or you try to fix or you judge. All those kinds of things. Funny little tidbit that I'm going to leave you with. Apparently Botox reduces the effectiveness of our mirror neurons and thus our ability to empathize. Researchers think it has something to do with the fact that your face is paralyzed and no longer able to physically mirror the emotions. So the mirror neurons require a physical expression for the loop to be complete. Botox, because it paralyzes our facial expressions, negates our ability to recognize like a sadness, for example, because it's those muscles right there that are part of expressing sadness. So when we can't physically mirror the emotion, we recognize it less in someone else. Who would have thought? So thank you so much for tuning in. I am Catherine, and until next time, stay true and never settle. Bye.